Yes,
to
yes.
to think some
In fact, this is also in a way good that more people can come together, na?
yeah.
Otherwise, traveling and all that becomes a big issue.
This is an opportunity for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an opportunity. I take it as an opportunity.
Definitely, definitely. Yes, sir. And see, we get a very unique forum to meet people whom otherwise you would have not met.
Yeah, true. Very true. Very true. Now, lot many things can be done by using ICT.
Yes.
So teachers, students, all are now used to this. That's good.
So students are very happy. मी म्हटलंय तुम्हाला आम्हाला बघायचं नाही का तुम्ही एकदम खुशी खुशी येतात झूमच्या वर्गात
Yeah. चांगला आहे पण.
थँक्यू सर
That's really good. That's really good.
हेगडे सर थँक्यू
Hegde, thank you. Welcome.
Is he working in your college? Hegde
No,
sir?
no, no.
No, no. I am from Belgaum.
Okay, you are from Belgaum.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Are you working in college or?
Yeah. I'm a professor.
You're a professor. In which
Since
college?
28 years I have been teaching.
Are baapre. So you are very senior.
Yeah, okay. Not senior as you.
Yeah. No, we are senior only by number of years, not otherwise.
Hello, sir.
Madam, you know that Supreme Court has given one judgment. It's a long back judgment regarding Punjab High Court. And they say that all judges are equal. Chief Justice is only the administrative chief. Otherwise, all judges are equal. And that's a greatness.
Sir, this question arose in Election Commission also earlier. Chief Election Commissioner was not superior.
No, he's not superior. True. Very
the
true.
same problem earlier also.
We unnecessarily think that the chief is the boss of everyone, or the principal is the boss of everyone. It is not so.
Only administrative head.
Only administrative head.
Sir, but आता कोरोना व्हायरसने दाखवलं कोरोना व्हायरस इज बॉस.
This is one more reality of the life.
Yes, nature. Nature is the biggest leveler or whatever you say.
Yeah, he's a teacher.
Yes.
True,
we can't go against the nature.
No, we
yes,
can't
sir.
go against
very
nature.
true, very true.
If we go, it will teach lesson to us.
Beautiful lesson, not only the simple lessons. That's right.
Sir, अजून 10 मिनिटं आहेत.
हो चालेल ना.
11 वाजता.
हरकत नाही.
So it's better because when there are technical issues, we are able to then sort it out.
Yeah. That's good. How is the position in Belgaum? Closed down?
हेगड़े सर आपको पूछ रहे बेलगाम में कैसा है करके.
हेगड़े बिजी है.
Okay. How is in Bombay? Mumbai? Bad?
Sir, तुम्ही मुंबईला नाही आहेत का?
No, I'm in Thane now.
Okay. Mumbai is not, sir. मुंबईला जे slum area आहेत ना, they are little problematic because I feel the main problem is the common bathroom. कारण आमची बरेच मुलं तिथे राहतात ना. So they said because of the common toilet, infection becomes greater.
The second problem
so many
is
of them sharing the same toilet.
Yeah. One more problem is the rooms are very small.
Yes.
5-6 people stay there. It is not possible. We can't expect them to be locked down in their home.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel very sorry.
They are bound to come out. It's good for us to say that they should not come out of the home, etc. Because
and it's very hot now. How they will stay at home?
And that too with a tin roof over them.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, तुमचे न्यू लॉ कॉलेजचे बरेच आहेत तिथे.
हो का?
हो, ते सगळे तुम्हाला विश करतात.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Who is this?
Sir, Mehta madam.
अरे मेहता मॅडम, तुमचा फोटो दिसतोय मला.
How I have not put the video on, that's why.
That's good.
And Sunil Malani from New Law College. He is also wishing you.
Sunil Malani.
Ah.
Who is this?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
This is Chetan Kumar from Memorial Law College, Belagavi.
Achha, you are from Belgaum also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Belgavi, okay.
Myself, Prasanna, and SS Segade.
Ah,
Just now we started with SS Segade, na.
ah,
So we are all working together.
that's great.
Yes, sir. Yes.
How is the position in Belgaum?
Sir, now the total number of the COVID-19 is 116.
Okay.
Total it is 116, but the rate of discharging is also very good, sir.
That's right. That's great.
Ah.
And how is in Dharwad or Hubli?
Sir, little bit problematic is there, sir, in Dharwad and Hubli also.
Dharwad and Hubli.
It's also coming to the orange zone only.
It's coming in red zone.
Sir,
Morning.
Kamini here.
Kamini, nikal ja. You know much more than me. Tu nikal ja. Turant nikal ja. She is one of my best student and very able professor. She is a solicitor of
How nice. How nice.
India also and UK also, both. भाई इससे बहुत डरता हूँ.
Sir, our honorary secretary, Dr. Rajendra Singh.
Yeah, okay.
He's also your big fan.
Yeah.
He has joined just now.
I met him once.
Yes, you have met him when you came to our college.
Yeah, and I think along with Tiwari also I met.
Ah, right.
Tiwari is one of my students. He's from Ghatkopar.
Achha.
तो उसके साथ भी मैं मिला था उनको. He's a very nice person. Great. And how many students from other colleges are here? Then students from other colleges.
All different, all over the country, but I think all law college students are represented.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So right now 218 participants are here.
That's nice. That's good.
Still they are joining.
Let them come. According to me, the most challenging part after this lockdown will be the emotional health of everyone. That will be very much important. And particularly we teachers will have to give some importance to that. The students are anxious, they are confused, they really don't know what to do and how to do.
Correct.
So that emotional stability and emotional health, that will have to be looked upon.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we will have to do something for that. Maybe at university level also. Mukundan madam, you are one of the senior principals.
Definitely, sir. In our own way, like for our students, every Tuesday we are posting for them, and then we are also conducting meeting because they need a lot of help since they come from the very, very marginalized section. So for them, that word, like when we talk to them, they're very happy. So we said mentoring is the need of the day. So every department has been told that you have to mentor the students and you should answer their phone call. And this week we have planned for class-wise meeting with them.
That's good. That's great.
Because they want to see us.
Yeah.
Sir, video call kartat mulo. So I think that is more important than anything else. And we have also put helpline and even very emergency, they can call us at any time. That is what we have told them.
That is really required.
Because sometimes they just want to talk. They don't want any monetary help or anything.
Yeah.
Because death is something everyone is scared of.
Again, uncertainty, future uncertainty is also one of the aspects.
Definitely, yeah.
I also receive calls from some students here and there. Sir, what about the exams?
Poor thing.
Yeah. You'll be surprised. Day before yesterday, I received a call from one High Court judge. I'm not going to name him. His student is his son is a law student in Bombay University.
Okay.
The father was so anxious about the exams, results, etc. And I think that he's planning to send his son abroad for some further study.
Okay.
So I said that, okay, even if he misses September session, you can think about April session also. What they call spring session.
Yes.
So you can think about that. Everyone is anxious because no one knows what is to be done. This is the first time we are facing this kind of issues.
That is what preparedness.
Yeah, preparedness.
Madhura madam, can we begin? Dr.
Yes,
Rajendra
yes.
Singh has also joined, madam.
नक्की चालू करूया आता.
हा मॅडम कर. कारण आपल्याला सरांना ऐकायचं आहे.
ग्रेटा मैडम. Yes. You can start now.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನಿಮ್ ಹೌ ಇಸ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಬೆಳಗಾವ್ ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ and then madam sir madam is
you got a
and all. On behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's HEPS College of Law, I, Ms. Greta Castellino, Workshop Coordinator and Assistant Professor, extend a warm welcome to you all on day 2 on the topic Rising Need of Legal Aid During Pandemics like COVID of the 3-day workshop on the role of academicians and professionals during pandemics like COVID-19. The instructions for today will remain the same as yesterday. Do not post any greeting or self-introduction in the chat box of the Zoom app before or during the session. The host will be turning off the audio of all participants. You are requested to cooperate. At the same time, please turn your videos off to preserve bandwidth of the remaining participants. During the registration process, several participants have already sent in questions to our honorable speaker. We have made note of them. The speaker is willing to have an interactive session provided you respect the instruction to not post any comment or question before the speaker concludes his lecture. Participants may raise relevant questions to the speaker in the Zoom chat box only during the open session for questions and discussions, which will be directed by the workshop convener to the speaker. The e-certificate will be awarded to participants only if you have 100% attendance and are present for the entire duration of all the 3 days, as well as submit the feedback form at the end of the session. No excuses for technical errors will be entertained. It's a great honor to be graced by the presence of our very encouraging and supportive patrons, Dr. Rajendra Singh, Honorable Secretary, Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, Dr. Usha Mukundan, Honorable Director, Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti. A humble welcome to today's honorable guest speaker, Professor Narayan Rajendra. The workshop convener, Dr. Ms. Madhura Kalamkar, IC Principal, HEPS College of Law. Our honorable guest speaker for today, Professor Narayan Rajendra, is a highly renowned law academician and eminent scholar. He is a man who requires no introduction, so I will keep it very brief. He is the former Dean, Faculty of Law, former Principal, New Law College, University of Mumbai. His resume would run into several pages, but his stature is visible through his passion for teaching, and we are all very eager to hear you, sir. Before we begin, I would like to request Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kalamkar to very briefly address the dignitaries and participants.
Good morning, one and all. It's my pleasure to welcome on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, College of Law, our Honorable Secretary, Dr. Rajendra Singh sir, our Director, Dr. Usha Mukundan of HEPS family, and all my participants advocates, distinguished guests, teachers, students. Today we have with us Professor Narayan Rajadaksha sir, and he is going to enlighten today's topic, that is rising need of legal aid during this pandemic. Sir is going to highlight about this legal aid, wherein a needy and poor people can get the access towards the court for the litigation purpose. So how in Lok Adalat mediation counseling is to be done, and sensitization in the society is much necessary. How these indigent people also can file the public interest litigation, that things are going to be cleared by our today's speaker. So basically for legal aid, in our preamble of the constitution also, it is already said that it is our aim to secure to the people of India justice, economic, political and socio. Even Justice P.N. Bhagwati stated that the legal aid means providing an arrangement in the society which makes the machinery of administration of justice easily accessible and in reach of those people who have to resort to it for enforcement of their right given to them by laws. One of the leading cases in Husainara versus Khatun versus State of Bihar, it was held says, then he has a right to have free legal aid at the cost of the state, which is also stated in our Constitution, Article 39 and also Section 304 of Criminal Procedure Code, wherein the legal aid can be given to the accused who has no sufficient means to engage an advocate. So by concluding my words, I will request our honorable speaker, Dr. Rajadaksha sir, to address our today's online gathering. Thank you. Sir, you can proceed now.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra, Dr. Usha Mukundan, our own principal, Dr. Madhura Kalamkar, all my colleagues from Bombay outside, all the students of law, and all the professionals, if anyone is there. The purpose of law is to resolve the conflicts, basically. I have certain interest, some other person has certain interest. And when those interests conflict with each other, then law comes into play. Sometimes these conflicts are personal conflicts between the individual. Sometimes these conflicts, although they are between the person, but those are likely to affect the society. Sometimes these are the conflicts between individual and the state, entire machinery. And all these conflicts are to be resolved. While resolving these conflicts, there can be various methods and methodologies to resolve the conflict. Judicial process is one method. I again repeat, judicial process, what we say administration of justice, is only one process to resolve these conflicts. But there can be other processes also. As has been rightly pointed out, 304 of CRPC makes it mandatory for the magistrate to provide legal assistance, advocate's assistance to the accused who is not represented by the lawyer. It is not necessary that person must be indigent person. It is not necessary that that person must not be having sufficient funds, sufficient money, sufficient property or resources to defend himself. The court cannot go into that inquiry, should not go into that inquiry. If I'm brought before the court and for any reason I cannot engage a lawyer, then it becomes the duty of, or rather the obligation of that court to provide me legal assistance. Article 39, etc. constitutional provisions were there for legal aid. But of course, the whole momentum started with Justice Bhagwati, as has been rightly pointed out. And of course, strongly supported by Soli Sorabji, one of the topmost lawyers India has produced. And then the people started thinking about it. And thereafter, by virtue of so many judgments, the law is further developed, the law is further shaped. Husainara Khatun is one. Mahato's case, Mahato versus State of Bihar is other. And there are so many case laws. I'm not going into intricacies of the case laws here, because I strongly believe cases come, cases go. Principle remains as it is, and the principle flourishes. Those principles are developed out of the basic concept of that particular law. And particularly for my young students, I would like to advise them not to by heart the provisions of law. No. Don't try to by heart the case laws. Never try to by heart the citations. Not necessarily. Because now so much material and resources are available to you that you can find out the citations anytime, anywhere. But what is important is you have to understand the very theme of that provision, whether it's our codified law, whether it's a statement of law, or whether it's a judgment. Many times, I'm telling it for my young students and not for the professors. Many times we think that these two judgments are conflicting with each other, but in fact, they are not conflicting. There is a golden thread running through all the judgments. And then we say that the law is developed. Of course, the other shape is given to them, the other facets of that particular basic principle is discussed in that some other judgment. But of course, that thing goes on. And similarly, this legal aid provisions also flourished day by day. Now, basically, we have the Legal Services Act. Under that, we have the Legal Services Authority at a national level, at a state level, at a district level, and also at taluka level. There are councils also. I don't enter into those councils part. What is the job of these people? The job of these authorities is not only to provide the legal assistance. No, that is not the only job. But they also have to arrange for legal literacy. They also have a job to organize Lok Adalat. Lok Adalat is for speedy disposal of the matters. The further systems were developed of mediation and counseling. Now, for mediation and counseling, that is also kind of a legal aid. That's a kind of a legal assistance to resolve the disputes at the fast. What do we mean by justice? Of course, I'm not going to jurisprudence again in very in-depth. But justice is not whatever is delivered in the court. I was working for, of course, even now, but not so vibrantly now, for Consumer Guidance Society of India. One day a gentleman came to me saying that, sir, I purchased a fridge. Then it developed some problems. I immediately contacted by that shopkeeper. He sent some mechanic, he got it repaired. But this thing is happening again and again and again. What should I do? I say, you can go to the court. Either get back the money or get back the replacement. Or for replacement, you can contact your dad, whosoever sold you the fridge. So that person went to that outlet, and that outlet wala, for what, why reason, I don't understand. But he said that you pay me some 2,000 or 3,000 more for some charges here and there, and I will give you another piece. He came directly to me. What should I do? My simple advice, pay that money and get the replacement. I think all my professor colleagues are shocked by this. Because consumer is entitled to get not only replacement, but compensation also. And I was advised him to give up that compensation part, to give up that replacement free of charge. I was advising him, pay that 2,000 rupees and get a replacement. And when we were NGOs, I'm a person with a legal background, but I was telling him, pay 2,000 rupees. My simple logic was that, or analogy was that, he can definitely go to the consumer forum. He will certainly win. But if the company prefers appeal to the state commission, how many years will be lost? Because at that time, in such kind of cases, no interim orders could be passed. If the years to be passed are 7 years, 8 years in Bombay, I'm talking about, then how can he handle that fridge which is not in working condition for 7 to 8 years in a small house in Bombay. And again, on the other hand, he will have to purchase another fridge by paying some 15,000 to 20,000 rupees. So totally dhande ki baat, pay 2,000 rupees, get rid of issue and live as much comfortably as you can. The question is whether my advice was absolutely legal. No. Whether my advice was to protect the interests of the consumer, which I was supposed to do as a person from Consumer Guidance Society of India, consumer NGO. No. But was that advice was to give justice to that person? According to me, yes. Because he was in position to spare that 2,000 rupees and get rid of all the issues at one go. Mediation, counseling, lok adalat, they work on these parameters. Sometimes you have to give up something to get real relief. Getting only your rights enforced by prosecuting these matters for years together, by paying lawyers periodically, going through all the anxieties, thinking about the uncertainty of the judgment, and also the appeals, etc., etc., etc. How much anxiety will be caused to that person? How much harassment will be caused to that person? Instead of that, better is what we say in Bombay, mandwali karo aur chhut jao. So that's a kind of the basic concept of this mediation. Now coming to the counseling and mediation, is it really necessary that person must be professionally trained for that? Because in Bombay we have which are some courses are going on for this mediation counseling. The proper mediators are developed there. What is counseling? Counseling is simple advice. The question is, in our day-to-day life, aren't we doing counseling on a regular basis? Aren't we counseled by some other people from time to time? When we were young, particularly when I was in school, my mother, my elder brother, used to counsel me. अरे क्या कर रहा है यार, ऐसा करो हो जाएगा, छूट जाएगा. Thereafter, my friends, then my colleagues, then my seniors. So many people counsel me. I also go on giving advice. But the question is, whenever we are counseling, we should have the ability to realize and understand the problem holistically. To understand all the parameters and all the issues related to that, whether directly or collaterally, together. And thereafter, we should have some ability to find out the resolutions, which will be much better than go on fighting with these issues. So if we are those kind of things, of course, those things don't come. My young student, don't think that you are not capable of doing it, and don't think that I am much more qualified than you people, because sometimes I find that my daughter is much more wiser than me in many cases. So in such cases, if we realize it holistically, if we keep our head cool, if we keep ourselves calm, and thereafter we think it and we go ahead with it, it is a counseling. So this mediation and counseling is also kind of a legal aid. That is also one. And thereafter comes the litigation part. If the matters are not resolved, then in that case, we can go for litigation. We have to go for litigation, because litigation should be the last resort. But of course, that's the only resort whenever it is left as the only resort. Now in litigation, access to the justice is also very important. Unfortunately, in our society, even as on today, many people don't have access to the justice. I'm not talking only about the India. Practically in all countries, and I can say it out of my own experiences and my own perceptions, that even in US and Canada, all people don't have access to the justice. When I say that access to the justice, It is not only whether the doors of court are open or not. It is not that. But the question is, do I have the ability to enter inside? The doors are open, agreed. But do I have the ability to enter inside and thereafter pursue that matter? But sometimes the question is still basic. Whether I know that there is a system, and still basic thing, very cardinal and foundation of it, do I know I have a right? But of course, we'll come to that little afterwards. But when I decide to go to the court and to fight the matter, the question is, do I have the ability? Do I really know how to file the cases? Do I really know how to defend my cases? Do I really know the provisions of law? Do I really know the intricacies of evidence laws? Do I really know what is to be done and what is not to be done or should be avoided in any legal proceedings? If I don't, then in that case, I need to have some professional assistance. And that assistance can be given by a trained lawyer. Of course, here we are talking about the trained lawyer. In North America, there is a different category, what they call it paralegal. Of course, the paralegal people also have to undergo 1 year's training. They have the course, paralegal courses. Once they complete that paralegal courses, they are not advocates. They are not advocates. Once they complete the paralegal courses, then they can appear in JP courts. JP courts means what we here say as a the judicial magistrate second class, something like that, where some minor offenses or the minor irregularities are dealt with. So paralegal people can go there, and I have seen that many a times more paralegal professionals are practicing in these lower courts than the lawyers themselves. But of course, some lawyers go there in case of some matters which are having the greater implications, particularly traffic offenses or the drug offenses, because the drug offenses and traffic offenses also initially go to these lower courts. Because in case of traffic offenses, the license can be suspended for 1 year also. And suspension of license for 1 year in North America is very, very serious, particularly in the winter. If you can't drive, then you are in trouble. Of course, public transport facilities are available, but when the person is used to his own car, then he cannot travel by this public transport. It becomes really very troublesome. So in such cases, there is that system of paralegal, which is unfortunately not there in India. We don't have that paralegal system as such, where in some case of minor offenses, the paralegal people come and they deal with this matter very fast there. So in this case, the legal assistance is to be provided. Now the further question is, who will provide that legal assistance? 304 says it is for the magistrate to see. But thereafter, we have the Legal Services Authorities Act. Under Legal Services Authorities Act, the panel of lawyers is prepared. And thereafter, this Legal Services Authorities, they assign these cases whenever you make an application to these authorities, whether at taluka level, district level, high court level, or wherever it is, or even in the Supreme Court. Then in that case, those matters are assigned to those lawyers. And those lawyers, they give the assistance. All expenses are taken care of by state. All expenses, I'm saying. If I have to file any suit, then in that case, the typing expenses, court fees, stamp duties, other incidental charges, whatever is to be spent, that person who is entitled to get that legal aid, he doesn't have to spare anything out of it. No, he doesn't have to bear anything out of it. Everything is taken care of by this paralegal authority. They pursue the matter, and thereafter they take it to the logical conclusion. But now let us come to reality. I was member of the High Court Committee of Maharashtra State Legal Services Authority for a long time. Of course, I started when Justice A.P. Shah was our chairman. He was very pragmatic, very pragmatic. Now retired from Delhi High Court. So The real issue is this. The empaneled lawyers, firstly, they are not always, of course, there are some, they are not always very highly experienced lawyer. The person who has put up 3 years of practice can empanel. The question is, the person with the experience of 3 years or 5 years, is he really in position? I'm talking on an average, I don't want to estimate anyone. Is he really in position to deal with some intricacies of law, some complexities of law? Or do we need some senior lawyer there? Very few senior lawyers, they are ready to work as a panel advocates for Legal Services Authority. Very few. And of course, those who enroll themselves, I salute them. I always salute them. Second is that the payment which is given to these lawyers is so meager that it is said, of course, I don't have any first-hand information, I don't have any data, I don't have any analysis before me. But it is said that because of that, these lawyers, they don't give much preferences to these kind of cases, which are given to them in that, what do we say, charity briefs. They call it charity brief. In fact, they are legal aid briefs. They don't give much preference to their legal aid briefs, but obviously they give preference to their paid briefs. That is the perception. And the matters are prolonged. Not only that, whenever the judgment is delivered, then in that case, those judgments or the verdicts are not communicated to the litigant or to the party to that issue, whether it's a suit or it's a prosecution, immediately. And therefore, sometimes the period which is within which the appeals are, or any other further proceeding, maybe revisions also if required, they are to be preferred, those period, those lapse. Thirdly, sometimes these litigants are not advised that they have a right to appeal. If no right to appeal, they have a right to file a revision. If there is no right to revision, they have a right to file a writ petition under 227 of our constitution. Because there are various different ways where we can go to the higher courts. So which kind of proceeding they can further take is not advised to these people. Sometimes they are not told where they can approach. And there are so many issues that the person against whom the order is passed and who is in legal aid scheme, who is taking help under legal aid scheme, he's really confused, he doesn't know what to do now. And that matter was decided by that Mahato's case, Mahato versus State of Bihar. The high-level committee, the amicus curiae, was appointed. Initial amicus curiae was appointed by the Supreme Court. Then amicus curiae suggested, no, there should be some high-level committee to make a recommendation, and they made a recommendation. They are very exhaustive recommendation. They said that in every circumstances, within 10 days from the date of judgment, I'm saying date of judgment, within 10 days, that order, I'm not saying date of receiving certified copies, no, 10 days from judgment. So within 10 days, that particular order or verdict is to be communicated to that person. That person must be informed that he can get a redressal, that is, he can go to the higher courts against the order passed against him in this way. He is also to be informed that he is also entitled to the legal aid, the free legal services. He doesn't have to spend anything in the higher court through this authority, because there the authority could be different. If I'm in the district court, my case is tried in the district court or a family court, and if I have to go to the high court, then in that case, the high court legal service authority is different. So he must be informed that way. And all further assistance which is required to be given to or rendered to the him, that assistance must be rendered. The scheme is let down. I really don't know whether that scheme is being implemented very efficiently or not. I'm using the word efficiently and effectively. Technical follow-up of a scheme has no meaning. If I enter the class and read out your syllabus, read out from your book, whichever book, anything, maybe textbook, maybe Jhabwala, maybe your Mokal, whatever it is. If I go on reading out, can you say that my teaching is effective? Can you say your teacher's teaching is effective? No. No. It must be result oriented, and therefore some time will have to be given to that person. Sometimes some more efforts are required to be done to make him understand what is what and what he can do. So all these recommendations, this high power committee has given very exhaustive recommendation, very exhaustive recommendation. You can definitely go again and find out. It is on the net also. Shankar Mahato versus State of Bihar. It's a Supreme Court judgment. But of course, judgment is very small, only 2 pages. But go to that high power committee's recommendation. They are very exhaustive. So that way the legal assistance is given. Now, who are entitled to get that legal assistance? It is usually thought that only the indigent person, that a person doesn't having sufficient funds, property, income, etc., or resources, he can go for that. It is not so. It is not so. According to the provisions, legal schemes, all persons belonging to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they are entitled to get that assistance. Have you ever been to Adivasi area? Is there anyone? Go to Adivasi area, particularly my young students. We always used to take one study tour to some remote villages in Maharashtra. And we went to Adivasi areas also a couple of times. You go to some Adivasi area, if you need, I can provide you some the tips, whom to contact, how to contact, and how to make it very cheap and comfortable also. When you go to the Adivasi areas, I'm not talking only about Palghar area, no. Not Dahanu area, no. Not Wada. That is, I'm taking the names, I'm sorry, the person who are from outside Bombay. These are the places where we can reach within 2 hours or 3 hours from Bombay here. Go to Nandurbar, go to Medaghat, go to Chandrapur, Gadchiroli. And you will find that the people staying there, they don't have access to the basic necessities of life. I had been to one particular village in Nandurbar district. The name of the village is Huna Kham. I'm telling you, you can find out from Google Maps. Huna Kham is on the border of Maharashtra and Gujarat. I'm really pained, and I can't forget that Huna Kham village any time in my life. Why I'm really pained is not because of poverty, but because of so many things that are together. The nearest high school is 8 kilometers away. The nearest doctor, I'm not saying primary health center, I'm saying doctor. The government doctor comes and sits there from some 11 to 5 or 11 to 6, or rather he's supposed to, is about 7 kilometers away. The nearest primary center is about 20 kilometers away, primary healthcare center. And if there is no facility to treat that particular ailment, then the nearest government hospital is 30 kilometers ahead of that primary health center. And that too, they had to go through the entire Ghat region. In the evening, there is no bus service, no ST service. After 7 o'clock, it is not possible to get any vehicle. How those people must be surviving there? If anything serious thing happens, how can they travel for almost 50 to 52 kilometers at night time without any transport facility? I really don't understand that. The second aspect is that there is so much poverty and the region is so hilly terrain, barren land, total barren land, that all the main folks, young people in that particular village, they go to Gujarat, which is hardly 3 to 4 kilometers away. They cross the border and they work in Gujarat right from October up to April. I just can't imagine what must be the sociological conditions, the family life of the people staying there. Young couples are separated for 6 months or 7 months in a year. The children don't see their father for 6 months or 7 months. Whatever money he sends here, with that money, the poor lady had to pull on. And there are so many things they are facing it. But in Hunakam, I realized one more thing, which I'm going to tell you. What can be the legal assistance? And that is the basic theme of Gram Nyayalaya. Gram Nyayalaya is totally different concept. What we are doing now as a Gram Nyayalaya is totally different. I asked them, where is the police station? The police station is at Molgi, 20 kilometers. Molgi is a marketplace, 20 kilometers. But if anything happens, how do you reach police station? Of course, I was talking with them with some help of some interpreter. The people said that we don't go to police station. All Adivasis. No one learned beyond, I think, 8th or 9th standard. No one. Of course, some of them might have learned and went some other places, but the people I met were not educated. They said, we don't go to police. But why? Because they beat both parties. Complainant also and accused also. We don't go to police. How do you settle the matter or any dispute? And then I started telling them, if there is a property dispute, if there is that water dispute and this dispute, that dispute, something like that, then how do you deal with that? They have the fantastic system. Fantastic system. In Hunakam, I realized it. They said that what we do is that dispute is referred to the elderly persons in that village itself. There's some 3-4 elderly people, they come together. Panchats, something like that. They call both the parties. Both the parties have to pay that court fee. So it is not only the person going to the court has to pay the court, both the parties have to contribute. Whatever it is, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 300 rupees, whatever they can afford. So these panchayats decide how much to be paid. So initially that amount is taken by panchayats. Thereafter the matter is settled there within an hour. Then I ask him, then what do you do with that money? Does that money go to the panchayats individually? They say, no, they don't. But then what we do is that we purchase liquor. Of course, they have their own country liquor, Moachi Daru. We get liquor, we bring rice, then some people bring some other meat, whatever it is, they can eat any meat. And then we cook and we eat together. A small party in some 400, 500, 600 rupees of some 20, 30 persons. A small party at home, there is a home party. When I heard that, first thing I realized is that these panchayats are not trained in the law. They don't know any legal principle, not even their mainstream actors or something like that. They don't understand anything of anything. So how can they deliver judgment? How can they say who is right, who is wrong? Whether the action is legal or illegal, because they don't understand air of law. So how can they do it? But then I realized, they realize what the people expect from the system. Justice is not what the book gives. Justice is not what the judges decide. Justice is not what lawyers think with so much of training and experience. The justice is what redresses the grievance of the person before him. The justice for me did not be the justice for my maid servant. Or what is the justice for the maid servant may not be justice for me. Every person's need of justice or a justice which is required is different, is totally different. So they know that thing. They know what is required by these people, what these people expect out of them, or from them, and they do the justice accordingly. And not only that, the further thing is that after this grand, beautiful trial for 1 hour, they drink together, they eat together, and might be dancing together also. So that relationship continues. Remember, in our courts, whenever the judgment is delivered, one plaintiff goes in one way, defendant goes in other way, one person is happy, other person immediately starts planning what to do next. Chhodega nahi usko. But in their Adivasi area, it is not so. The matter is resolved. It is resolved more amicably It is resolved without hurting the parties. It is resolved by giving them whatever they are requiring there, and not whatever your law book says, big books, bade cheeze. And that way it is a justice. This is the whole concept of Gram Nyayalaya. In fact, Vinoba Bhave also advocated this kind of justice. You must have heard about Justice S.C. Dharmadhikari, Satyaranjan Dharmadhikari, who few days before resigned from Bombay High Court. He was in Bombay High Court. And he was, before his resignation, he was the chairman of Maharashtra State Legal Services Authority. His father, Justice Chandrasekhar Dharmadhikari, one day I had an occasion to talk with him. We used to call him Dada. There he explained me the Vinoba's concept, Sarvodaya concept of justice. And that's a fantastic, that's a really fantastic. And he himself was a High Court judge, a very senior High Court judge, Justice Chandrasekhar Dharmadhikari. Justice Chandrasekhar Dharmadhikari is son of Acharya Dharmadhikari, who was very close confidant of Mahatma Gandhi. So Justice Chandrasekhar Dharmadhikari told me, he expired long back. Justice Chandrasekhar Dharmadhikari told me, what is the justice? What is justice? That justice is to be done. That is important. Justice is nothing but dignity, respect for each other. Justice is nothing but to fulfill the needs, expectations, of course, genuine needs and genuine expectations of every person. That is justice. Justice is not what this person says, that person says, that person says. And therefore, I always say that the basic theme of law is altogether different than what is printed there. What is printed is also important for the students, but what is there between the lines or beyond the lines is more important for every one of us, including myself. When I read any judgment, I don't read only the lines. I try to read between the lines. I try to read beyond the lines. So that is very important for us. So, but of course, sometimes whatever system we have to follow the system. That is always there, because that's the reality of our life. So in such cases, who are entitled? Firstly, all persons from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Secondly, women. Women are entitled to free legal aid service. Income is not prescribed. Industrial workers, they are entitled to free legal aid service. Children, all children are entitled to get free legal aid service. Children means child below 18 years of age, and not the law student, particularly 3 years law student. No, you are not children now. So, children, all persons who are in custody, they are entitled to get free legal aid service. What do you mean by custody? Custody of a state. By virtue of any law, if the person is kept in confines of some authority, we call him custody. Custody need not be always the police custody. No. The person who are detained under Juvenile Justice Act, whether the child in conflict of law or child in need of support, both are in custody. There are so many laws under which the person can be taken in custody. So all the persons who are in custody, they are entitled to it. All the persons who are in undeserved circumstances, I will tell you what undeserved circumstances. That is, these are the circumstances which I don't deserve. These are the circumstances which are thrusted upon me. What could be those circumstances? Those circumstances may be natural calamities also. If any natural calamity come now, we are apprehending some storm in Orissa and Bengal within a day or two. So, of course, Orissa is always worst hit area. Orissa, Andhra, Bengal, some part of Tamil Nadu. So, all the persons who are suffering by natural calamity, all the persons who are victims of any violence, mob violence I'm talking about, and not individual violence, mob violence, that is riots, etc., whether on the basis of caste, creed, religion, etc., whatever it is. So all the persons who face some kind of disasters, maybe you're a Bhopal gas. So all the persons who face, because of some disasters, some riots, something which is beyond control of anyone, whether it's a madman or not madman. All the persons who are in those undeserved circumstances, they can get legal aid. And there, all expenses are to be borne all by the state. Entire assistance must be rendered. So these are the people who are entitled. They have to make an application to the authority, or sometimes the authority can do it suo motu also of its own, particularly in case of these riots or disasters or natural calamity. The authorities themselves, the legal service authorities themselves can take an action. We did not think that it is a branch of a state and therefore how can they go against the state, because finally the compensation is to be received from the state also if it's a natural calamity. So in such cases, these authorities can take a suo motu action on this, suo motu action. In fact, sometimes the court can take suo motu actions also, and they can direct the authorities, do it this way, give them the legal assistance. So these people are entitled to legal assistance. They are to be given the laws. All the expenses are to be borne by the state, and thereafter the matter can proceed further. So this is regarding the legal aid service. But one more aspect of legal aid, it's very important, and that is legal literacy, legal awareness, and legal sensitization. This is most important. When I talk about the sensitization, of course, I'm not using the word sanskar, because if I use the word sanskar, then some people may start taking it in some other way. But every individual must be sensitized to become a sensible person in the society. If we start teaching, or if we try sensitizing the boys in the age group of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and if we succeed in that, because it has to be the continuous program, then in that case, I think that many of the offenses against women will drop down drastically. Offenses against women are committed only because those people are not properly sensitized. Of course, I'm not showing any sympathy for those persons who are doing it. No. This is not an excuse. This is not an excuse also. But if they are sensitized properly at a right age, then in that case, they will become more sensible person, more responsible person. And therefore, sensitizing the people in the society at a right time, at a right age, taking care of their grooming is also kind of a legal aid, because that is going to avoid so many further legal complications, issues, offenses, wrongs which are done against each other. And therefore, that sensitization is one. Second is awareness. This awareness and literacy are again two different things. In case of awareness, every person should be generally aware what are his rights, what are his duties, what are his obligations, and what are his privileges. He must understand that yes, I can expect this thing, but at the same time, he must also understand I am also bound to do this thing, or I am supposed to do this thing. So this is awareness. Every person must be aware of it. If you are aware, most of the time we are aware of so many things, because most of the time we see that, most of the time, not always, that law is based on some common morals, common ethics, and common, what we say, common sense. It is not a common sense, but common moral and common ethics. We know what is good, what is bad. But sometimes it is to be put it before them in a very crystallized manner to have the better impact, So that's the awareness about their rights, their privileges, their duties, and their obligations. Both things are important. You know that about 10 years before, Consumer International has started celebrating a day, and that is not Consumer Rights Day, but that is Consumer Duties Day. That is important, very important, that I must be aware what are my duties as a consumer, So I'll give you one example. No, my all neighbors are very nice and thorough gentlemen. But presume that one of my neighbor is stealing electricity by applying so many other methods, whatever the methods are. And if I come to know about it, is it not my obligation to inform MSCB or whosoever is supplying electricity to our building that look, this person is stealing electricity? Is it not my duty to inform that? Or can I say that it is their job to find out? Why should I inform? No, it is my duty also to inform it. So that kind of awareness is to be created. And then comes the legal literacy. In case of legal literacy, this is the third stage, and fourth stage is paralegal training. In legal literacy, I tell them the basic provisions. I tell them the basics of that. That say, for example, consumer rights. Now, these are your rights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In case of matrimonial rights, I can tell it, these are your matrimonial rights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can get this remedy in this case circumstances, this remedy in these circumstances, etc., etc. So very precisely, I have to explain them and I have to literate them. I'm not teaching them. No, I'm not going into the fine laws of it, but I tell them superficially that what is the basic point, what we say bullet points. So in bullet points, I can tell that is the legal literacy. This is also a kind of legal aid. And this is the job of Maharashtra State Legal Services Authority, or rather every legal services authority. They have to conduct these programs. But of course, the way they are conducting program is a different thing. And next is the paralegal training. There are separate provisions for paralegal training. Paralegal training is given only to the social workers. That person need not have a particular qualification. He need not be graduate. No. For coming to law, you must be 12 standard, CET or graduate, then CET and all the things. It is not necessary. Paralegal training can be given to any social worker. Now, that paralegal training is the area focused. Are you going to work in family law issues? Are you going to work in social issues? Maybe prostitution, the children of the prostitutes, their human rights, the street children. So accordingly, we have to focus on a particular area. Then we have to get all laws again, and we have to train them. The paralegal training is almost for 50 hours or more. It can't be less than that. It can't be less than that. So in paralegal training, they are trained about what are the provisions of law, what is the scope of the provision, how to get remedy for violation of your rights or whatever it is, then how the processes are followed in the courts or otherwise. And thereafter, this paralegal, they can assist the people in getting their rights enforced. These paralegals in India are not allowed to appear in any court in India, in no court in India, no way. You always need a lawyer there. You always need a lawyer. Paralegal also cannot file a case. Of course, paralegal has only one avenue where he can go. He can go to the protection officer under DV Act, Domestic Violence Act. But again, that protection officer is from there the whole thing starts. So because to the protection officer, anyone can go. Anyone can go. It need not be paralegal also. So, but they can do it. But otherwise, these paralegal people, they assist the person. They know how to get help from Legal Services Authority. So they can take the person to the Legal Services Authority and then they can talk with them. And then he can assist him, because even though the lawyer sitting in the Legal Services Authority tell the person who is in need of help, he may not understand the whole thing, which paralegal can understand in a little better way. So he can explain him in his own ways. So it's just like if I go to the doctor and doctor tells me some 10 things, I don't understand ABC of it. But if there is a nurse with me, nurse knows what the doctor is talking about. Then nurse can explain me, and then I understand it very properly, because that nurse gives me more time and she can explain me in a way more proper way. In fact, the law should do that, but if they don't have a time, they can't do that. So in such cases, the paralegal can help in this particular way. But for paralegal, is it necessarily necessary that the person must be properly trained as per the scheme which is framed by Legal Services Authority. There is a scheme, paralegal training scheme also. We conducted few paralegal training programs also in Yashwantara Swan Pratishthan. Some courses were held. But can my law student work as a paralegal? Yes, why not? Kids, you can do that. And of course, the Bombay University student, you will be benefited by that, I tell you. You do that, come to me, I will tell you the trick. For your 40 marks internal component, you can use that thing. Okay. But of course, don't do it for that 40 marks thing. Don't do it for marks. No. Do it because you are interested in helping the people. This will give you double benefit. Firstly, you will come to know how to talk with your clients or a common man or the aggrieved person. How to take information from that aggrieved person, how to analyze it, and thereafter how to work on that. All these trainings are going to help you in your future life, whether you are in litigation practice or non-litigation practice, because the different faculties in your brain, they start developing. And therefore, if possible, not impossible, make it possible. You can work as a paralegal, maybe through some NGOs. There are so many NGOs who are there to help the people in legal issues. So maybe through NGOs, or maybe in your college also you can form it, but provided you have to learn at least the basic laws in a broader parameters which are applicable to those persons. Your teachers can guide you on that. Your teachers can guide you. So, or you can select the area, start working on those areas and help them as a paralegal. As a paralegal, now, in my college few years before, some of our girl students, they started going to municipal schools. I'm giving a very simple idea. And those municipal authorities also, Bombay Municipal Corporation or even the principals of the municipal schools, they are very cooperative. They started going to the municipal school and they're talking with the girls of 8th standard onward. They were telling them what is sexual harassment. They were telling them what are the offenses against women. Those girls were rather telling them basic information. They were telling them about what steps can be taken to avoid it. What steps can be taken if anything happens to them. If anything happens to them. So prevention and also redressal. These girls were telling the girls of 8th standard, 9th standard, 10th standard in municipal school, which is easily accessible. This is the paralegal training, and thereafter have an interactive session. In interactive session, it is not necessary that you must be in position to answer their all questions. If you are not confident, then tell them that today I don't know the answer, I'm not confident about it, but within 2 days I will let you know. Come to your teacher, ask the teacher, understand that thing, read it, study it, go back and tell them. So here you are dealing with the live case, and this is called kinesthetic learning. So in this way also you can start learning of your own. So in these cases, and at the same time, you are doing some legal work, you are doing some social work also. So may not be as a trained paralegal, because you are a law student, you need not be trained paralegal. You can start doing this kind of things. So this is that. Now coming to this COVID, there are many issues which you are facing today also, and many issues which you are going to face after lockdown also. Now, today, what are the issues here? The main issue is about the migrant labor. That is the main issue. Certain states are trying to help the people from their state to get back them to their state. Well, certain states might not be taking adequate steps. Now, everyone is doing it, but whether the steps are adequate or not is important. When I say adequate, I don't say ideal, because there is no benchmark for ideal. Whatever you do, howsoever you do, there is always something more can be done. This is always there. So we are not looking for a very ideal situation, but we are looking for an adequate situation at this time. But the question is, whether those policies, those schemes which are framed by those states, have they reached to the person who are in need of that? Say, for example, A state. A state stated that we will bring back all the labor, migrant laborers from our state to our back home. But the question is whether all the people who are out of the state are aware of this. These people are walking on a street. They are walking for hundreds and thousands of kilometers, or trying to walk for hundreds and thousands of kilometers. They are walking without any food, without any water, without any shelter. They are walking tirelessly without any further assistance. What must be the plight of these persons? This is not a question of legal issue, strictly speaking, even though human rights issues are involved in this. This is not that. But the question is, as a law student, can we do something for that? This is the issue. I know that if you're staying in a city, then in that case, crossing the boundaries of your city and then standing on a highways, etc., that I can't advise you that thing, because that is not feasible also. That is not feasible. But at the same time, can we do something else? Because there might be some NGOs. There are some NGOs who are working in these areas. So can we help these NGOs? So that will be a collateral assistance to them. We cannot directly go to them, but of course, can we do that this way? It can be done. There are issues regarding the labor, because some questions are put up for me for that. Now, companies, they are closed down. The employees are jobless. Industrial workers are entitled to get free legal aid. Industrial workers entitled to get free legal aid under the scheme. The question is, are they entitled to get their salary? It is not only the question of salary. Sometimes accommodation is also provided by the employer. And if everything is closed down and the employer says that, okay, you are retrenched, laid off, go. The question is, can we help them? There was a circular stating that even during the lockdown, the employer should pay amount, their salary, to the employees. Some couple of days before the judgment has come, stating that this particular circular or order issued by the state of Maharashtra is untenable. You cannot compel the employer to pay the salaries when the business is closed down or stopped. Now look here, as I said in the beginning, it's a conflict. It is always a conflict. Employees on one hand, employees on the other hand. But this is not a conflict as is envisaged by Karl Marx. Have and have not, exploitation, etc. This is a conflict between the needs of the employees and feasibility on the part of the employer. I'm saying feasibility. If my business is totally shut down, if I have to repay the loans I have taken, if I have to handle my investments, which have become a dead investment, which cannot be realized in the market, my shop is done with, then in that case, from where to get funds and to pay my employer? So this is that conflict which was rather dealt with by this. Again, can we expect the state to pay the salary? Because we always say that if not, then either Modi, Narendra Modi or Uddhav Thackeray, they should do it. We always want our state to do everything. So here the question is it possible for the central government or a state government or a local authorities to pay the salaries? But is it possible for some authority, whether central, state or local authorities, to protect this person from starvation, to protect these persons from staying under the sun? Can we make some kind of arrangement for their stay? Can we make some kind of arrangement for their food, their day-to-day needs? It can be. Of course, there are certain schemes. But again, those schemes will have to be rather implemented very effectively. If not, can we file PIL on this? Yes, we can. This is a kind of a legal aid to these people. Many issues are coming up. There is, so one question is put up on the Domestic Violence Act. I was reading a report from National Legal Services Authority. I was so happy, so happy. It said that in Himachal Pradesh, this impact of COVID is very less. But the number of cases of domestic violence have gone up tremendously. While in the state of Maharashtra, the impact is very severe, COVID. But the number of cases under Domestic Violence Act has come down very sharply. I immediately remembered what I learned when I was of your age. As a student of criminology, there was one sentence, something like that. The group of men are worse than the herd of wolves. So we are worse than the animals also. But now we cannot come into group. There is a social distancing. We have to stay separate. And therefore, I thought that now those cases must be going down, criminal cases. Again, in case of domestic violence, everyone is locked down. Everyone could be bolo. They are a little depressed. And therefore, we don't have now the courage, guts, energy, or enthusiasm to harass my wife, something like that. It must be so. It must be so. So I thought that it's a good thing, one way. One way, it's a good thing that the domestic violence cases are coming down. But when I started talking with some of my students, that is past to ex-students, who passed out some 10 years before, 15 years before, what I realized was really shocking. Under Domestic Violence Act, it is not necessary you have to go to the protection officer. You can go to police station. You can directly go to the court also, magistrate also. But of course, if you go through protection officer, that becomes easy. The protection officers' offices are located at different places. In Maharashtra, because of lockdown, traffic is not allowed. You cannot travel. Now, say for example, in Mumbai, if I have to go to the protection officer for filing some complaint on behalf of my sister, my daughter, etc., first thing, can I reach there? That's the first thing. Second thing, whether the office of that protection officer is open. Because some areas are totally sealed. But kuch nahi. In some areas, they are not totally sealed, but they are locked down. So you cannot open the offices. Thirdly, even if the offices are open, how can that protection officer reach the office? Because that protection officer is not staying in that building. That protection officer might be staying at 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers. We don't know. How can that protection officer reach the office every day? Fourthly, will the protection officer come there every day when the protection officer is also under fear or apprehension of getting affected by COVID? So these are the issues, and therefore people are not reaching to the protection officers. Even if they go to the protection officers, even if we go to the magistrate, the situation in some part is so worse. Of course, I'm not talking about entire Maharashtra. I'm talking about the major cities which are affected. I will give you the other side also. The situation is so worse that in the court, hardly 1 or 2 employees are coming, apart from that magistrate or a judge, who also sit there for a few hours. And they are dealing only with the urgent matters of bail and remand. If you go there with a DB Act case, they say that, okay, file it. But we will pass the order when the courts reopen and functioning restarts. And that way these matters are kept pending. Sometimes the matters are not going to the courts also because of traveling hurdles. Contacting the people is difficult. Availability of the persons is difficult. And again, going to the court is also not easy. Sometimes the matter might not be registered also. But of course, this is one situation here. But of course, there are instances in the Raigad district, Alibag court, and in Sawantwadi, that is Sindhudurga court, in Ratnagiri also, the orders are passed. But of course, hardly 1, 2 orders are passed. Again, the issues are the same issues. The people cannot travel by ST. In Mofussil area, the persons are staying at the distance of 10, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, sometimes 40 kilometers also from the place of court. And in that cases, the people cannot reach the court because transportation is not available. If this is the situation, then in that case, these matters will have to come after. The one of my students gave me a nice, beautiful advice. Sir, we can go to the High Court. Well, of course, we can go. No issues. E-filing. Because now we can go to the High Court by e-filing also. We can go under writ petition, no issues. And we'll ask them to start e-services. I said, okay, e-services are good enough. E-service is good enough for my daughter. Because she too has a phone, I too have a phone, we have a laptop, she has a laptop. So we can play all the games here. But what about the ladies from the poor strata of the society, who are from deprived classes? Those who do not have this kind of communication facilities, how can they contact anyone by your ICT, internet communication technology? How can they do that? And most of the time we find that the persons who are deprived of the justice, the whole system of justice, they are from poor strata of the family. They are from deprived classes in the society. How can we help them? We want to help only our sisters and daughters, which are not even 10% of the people in need of support or help in the society. So therefore, we have to understand that thing also. As I said in the beginning when I was chatting with Dr. Mukundan madam, that this is an opportunity for us to start thinking what can be done further, what kind of development we. Now we are facing these issues, and now we are realizing what are really the issues are, because now we are in the mess. And this is an opportunity for us to start finding out. And all these answers will have to be found after lockdown is over, even though our life becomes regular, even though everything becomes rather smooth, steady, and moving. In spite of that, we will have to think about and find out some solutions to this as an alternative way, because we really don't know at what time what may come down, Of course, we may also have to find out alternatives to ICT also, because we really don't know whether ICT will work forever or not. Some country can block our intercommunication technology, and thereafter we will again in mess. So therefore, instead of having only one way of getting the retracel, we should have alternative ways. And this is really what we have to start thinking about. So we have to find out some modes and methods as per our needs, and not needs of the people sitting in New Jersey, or not needs of the person sitting somewhere in Sydney. No. So we have to get our needs, our issues, and then we have to find out the things. This is regarding the COVID. Should we deal with some of the questions? Where is my mobile?
Yes, sir, we can now start with the questions.
Yeah. Of course, I discussed few of the questions, but
yeah, you already covered many of the questions.
Yeah. So we will go with that.
So with your permission, may I read the question?
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So one question is there from Advocate Mahesh Sawant. He's a legal professional, LUC Law College from Chicago. Does legal aid support the individuals which have been removed from their job? Can our Indian law help these employees to re-establish job, and also the employers who do not have sufficient funds to support employees? any legal provisions the state policy can be implemented?
Same problem is faced by US also. Same problem is faced by Italy also. In UK also. But of course, the India, again, the parameters are different. Every country has its own parameters. Again, the parameters in New York and parameters in Chicago can be different again because of their federal system. Now, again, as I said in the beginning, this is the conflict. Employees' interest vis-a-vis the employer's interest or feasibility. Whatever be the legal provision, of course, you know that in so many states now, our regular labor laws or the industrial laws are suspended for 2 years or 3 years. Can you imagine why? If a particular state, that's what I realized it. If a particular state suspends all the legislation, labor legislations or industrial law legislations, it is because these legislations, they give lot of support, lot of protection to the employees. And there is a duty casted out or burden, financial burden or other thing, they are casted upon the employers. If the employers do not have sufficient funds, then in that case, can they restart the industry? And can they take the industry further? In Bombay, there was a time when I was very young that our cotton mills, that was the main industry of Bombay, cotton mills. But after the strike, which went on for a long time, all the mills, they stated that we are unable to start the mills. You can talk with your parents, your young people. We know what kind of difficulties are faced by these mill workers. They were totally jobless. They were staying in a central Bombay, south central Bombay, most of them. And then the issues also came about their accommodation because some of those chars were owned by the mill owners, particularly Khatao mills and something like that. And those issues started, of course, their accommodation is protected. Those employees, they were given compensation when this mill land was sold, I'm saying sold, to some builders to develop that property. And out of that, some amount was given to the employees. But that amount was not sufficient compensation because always the court has to see the feasibility. If court passes order that yes, employer has to pay the salary and the employer is not in position to pay the salary, what will happen? Employee will not get salary. Employer will be under burden to pay the salary, under duty to pay the salary. So he is a defaulter. He will have to honor that particular order whenever it is. He may go bankrupt. The industry will not start. Employees are not getting salary. So the whole thing is messed up. So that feasibility is also very important at the time of passing of the order. And that is called effective order. If we pass the order which are not effectuated, which cannot be implemented, then in that case, those orders are absolutely of no use. So therefore, compelling anyone to do this thing or do that thing is not possible. Is not possible because those orders cannot be effected. And we just can't think that only because court passes the orders, all the employers will reinstate all the employees. No, in no country it can happen. No country it can happen. It can't happen even in China also. So somewhere I was reading some reports that in China also so many companies, sometimes the state-owned companies, they are saying that we are not going to start this company again full-fledged. It will take 3 years or 4 years to start full-fledged. What the employees are going to do? This is such an unfortunate situation. This is such an unfortunate situation which we have to face. And our policy makers, they have to find out some solutions. Of course, those solutions, again, as I say, will not be very ideal, will not be what we want, will not be in the interest of all at a time. But those must be very effective. Those must be very feasible. And to the maximum possible extent, those things must help the employees and also facilitate the employers starting the business again. So this is the issue of commerce, trade, and something. This is not an issue of law, really speaking. It's not that. What's the next one? Is the gentleman here present today? Madhura, can you hear me or not?
Madhura madam.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
सर विचारतात ते आहेत का ज्यांनी प्रश्न विचारला?
Mr. Mahesh Sawant, are you there? Mahesh Sawant, are you there? Sir, I think he's not there. We can go with the other question.
Yeah.
So you have already covered about the domestic violence cases.
Oh.
Yeah, that too you have covered. About the foreign countries' power under the legal aid, that also you have covered. One question is there about Article 21. Is not it covered under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution to get medical legal aid? Can we insist to provide free checkup of corona test to government under Article 21 of the Constitution, which ensures life? Suresh Bhosle is a law student, Devji Bhai Karita Law College, Kalyan.
Their principal is also one Bhosle. Okay. Article 21 under medical aid is possible. I was talking with one of my friends who is a cardiologist in Vasai, having his own hospital. And he was telling me, Raja, do you know how less we are spending on health sector? Then he started giving me some examples of Italy, US, that this much percent of GDP is spent on this health sector, while in India, we are spending only this much. That's a good enough. Yesterday, I was reading Financial Express, where all the industrialists, they say that whatever package is given by the central government is so meager that it is not possible. The funny thing in India is that we always want state to do everything. Whosoever be in power, we always want central government, state government, municipal corporation to do everything. And benefit must come to us. And everyone wants that. Now, in case of medical, as per the present scenario, do you know that the Sion Hospital and KEIM Hospital, they were not designated to treat corona patients, COVID patients? Do you know that? They were not designated for that. But when the designated centers intake capacity is rather exhausted, these municipal hospitals, they are the municipal hospitals. Of course, JJ is also there. JJ is government hospital. This municipal hospital, they started taking patients. But the infrastructure available with them, the logistic support available with them, the human resource support available to them is so meager that it is not possible for them to handle all the patients together. And if it is not possible for them to handle the patients together, can we blame them? Can we blame the government again that you are not providing? Why didn't you create some more hospitals? This situation is so rather unique situation. It is unexpected. No one could have thought about it. And if we have to make ample provision well in advance in every sector, we will have to start more schools, more kindergartens, more hospitals, more railways, more roads, more aeroplane, more airports, because that may be the need after a few years. That may be the need after a few years, or maybe more launching pads also in future, because after 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the people might be, I'm not sure, might be traveling to airspace. How much can we spend? That feasibility aspect is also to be seen. That doesn't mean that the government can give the excuses. No, no, that doesn't mean that. I'm not going to spare government for that also. But if the hospitals are not adequate, then some other possibilities are to be explored. Some other solutions are to be explored. If it is not possible for the hospitals to deal with it, then can we find out some other places where some patients can be accommodated? Can we find out some medical and paramedical staff to handle those places, venues? If we don't have adequate medical or paramedical staff there available, then in that case, can we see that we can ship some of the patients there who might not be in need of support from the medical or paramedical staff or much more paramedical or medical staff. So there are so many things issued. Everything is to be explored. Everything is to be done dedicatedly. Article 21, yes. But again, the feasibility is the main question. Feasibility is the main question. Can High Court or a Supreme Court pass the order against central government, state government, or municipal corporation that you must accommodate all the corona patients in all the hospitals which are available with you? Can it be done? Because finally, every hospital has its own capacity. You cannot increase it. And few days before, we know that there were some reports in the social media that dead bodies are kept along with the patients there. And thereafter came a rather explanation for that also. So in such cases, we need not hide the things. We have to face the reality. Whatever is the reality, if we have a deficiency, we have to accept that yes, we are deficient. How to remove the deficiency, it can be seen. What can be the solution to deal with the situation in spite of these deficiencies? What could be the solution to deal with that particular situation in spite of these deficiencies will have to be seen. Some resolutions will have to be accepted, but finally, the reality of life cannot be denied. We cannot say that China has erected a hospital in 8 days and therefore we should also erect a hospital in 8 days. These kind of comparisons are very bad, because we really do not know what is the position in China, what is their fiscal position, what is their technological position. We don't know here. And in Bombay, where to erect the hospital for 10,000 patients here? Do we have a place for that? So these are very complex issues. In theory, I agree that medical aid, the right to medical aid can come under Article 21 of the Constitution, must come under Article 21 of the Constitution. But a mandatory enforceable order, I don't think the court can pass. I don't think. Court should not.
Sir, two more questions.
Yeah.
Given the monetary failures and the default on contractual terms, can concessions be given by the government to help out the party? How will the contractual terms work out with the lockdowns initiated by the government?
Section 56 of Indian Contract Act with quantum merit. Law students, doctrine of quantum merit and Section 56 of Indian Contract Act. But of course, it has other aspect also, and that is regarding where government is directly related to that. I'm talking about the real estate agency sector. Under RERA, the developer has to finish. Hello, am I there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, because some box is coming here. Acha, ain't polling. Okay, chalo. I'll close down. I'm not interested in polling. I'm not contesting any election. Now in the RERA, the builder, so many obligations are imposed upon the builder. So many limitations are there. And one way it is good. He has to complete the project within the stipulated time. But I heard because I have not seen any report on this, that extension is given for the builders to complete the projects. Again, some people started shouting against it immediately. But again, the question is, today you cannot work. Your entire labor is non-Maharashtrian. At least 90% of the people who are working in a construction industry, they are non-Maharashtrian. All. Whether they are masons, they are begaris, they are carpenters, they are plumbers, they are fitters, and whatnot. So they must have gone to their native place. We don't know when they are going to come back. Today, 6 months extension is given, but that extension may be further extended also if the laborers don't come back in time. So wherever the government is a party to that, government can give that extension. But presume that if I entered into the contract with someone to sell my flat, interpersonal, where the government has nothing to do with that. And in such cases, it is prescribed that before 31st of May, he has to pay me the entire amount. Now he's not in position to pay. If this is the situation, the question arises, can court grant me additional time or not? Yes. This is the unforeseen circumstance. That is, the situation change after the contract is made. In this kind of cases, always the contract will not become totally void. No. Contract will not become totally void, but under specificity fact, the court can, under section 2021, the court can give some relief for the person who has landed himself in that particular mess or who is not in position to fulfill his contract because of the circumstances beyond his control. So court has a power to do that. And I think the court should be sympathetic to both the parties, because both parties have their own rights. But no one is at fault. So that can be the question. The government has already done its part. Now it is for us to be little more sensitive. So,
Okay, so next question. What are the measures taken by the Supreme Court to improve the health condition of the prisoners in a jail? One, Shanti Rodriguez, law student, JSS Law College Autonomous, Mysore.
there are two orders. One order is of 23rd March and second order is of 11th of May. That order of 11th of May was passed by Justice Ramanna. But of course, the issues they are dealing with the prisoner is a burning issue, at least in Maharashtra, I know. And particularly in Bombay, it is very serious, very serious. Our prisons are overflooded. They are overflooded to the extent of 2 to 3 times their intake capacity, sometimes 4 times also in some cases, somewhere. Although we have constructed a very nice prison at Taloja, close by. It is because, not because many convicted persons are in prison. It is because of under trials. Supreme Court has already passed the order long back that the person who is in the custody, judicial custody, that is in the prison, for the stretch of more than 50% of the maximum penalty awardable. Now say for theft, it's a 3 years punishment. If I'm already in judicial custody for 1.5 years, 50% punishment ho gayi meri, then I should be released on bail. Except murder and some serious offenses, sir. Not in all offenses, but most of the offenses. So I should be released on bail. But the question is, am I in position to provide the surety and furnish bail? Most of them, not 90% or 80%, but many of these people are not from Maharashtra. They are outside Maharashtra. They don't have any close relative here who can come to the court and furnish bail. Or sometimes the people coming to the court, they are not accepted as a surety by the court because of various reasons. They don't have a permanent place, permanent employment, sufficient funds, etc., etc. These people are not released on personal bonds also. And these people are not released on bail also, surety also. This was the issue. And there is a committee constituted. That committee held the meeting, 2-3 meetings. This committee was under Justice Radhakrishnan, our retired High Court judge. Committee made certain recommendations. Of course, I cannot reveal those recommendations here. But now Justice Ramanna has stated that it is on the net, it is on the net. 11th to 23rd March and 11th May. And some couple of days before, it was in Times of India also. You can open the old Times of India, you can find out. There is an article on that. He said that these people should be released on their personal bond for 45 days. So if presume that I am from, where should I come from? Assam. I am from Assam. I am detained here for some offense. I don't have anyone to furnish bail. Therefore, I am in judicial custody. Now, prisons are overcrowded. If they are overcrowded, then the danger of this corona spread is more. I should be released. But I don't have any friend who will be the proper surety for me. Even if the court passes the personal bond order or the cash deposit order, I don't have cash also to deposit 20,000, 30,000. Then what? I don't have cash to deposit it. I don't have any friend who can be accepted as a surety here. Justice Ramanna said, release them on personal bond, except few sections, except few offenses, not for all offenses, not for all offenses, except few, very few offenses. Otherwise, I should be released from personal bond. But here, I have not furnished bail. I have not furnished cash security. So here that committee recommend that I should be released initially for 45 days. After 45 days, this release can be extended for 30 days at a stretch. Meanwhile, I have to furnish proper bail. If I'm not in position, it can be further extended for 30 days till such time as the state government may decide. So when everything becomes smooth, at that time the court may say that no, now this particular concession or facility was given to you because of those special circumstances, but now you should be. Again, go back. And again, there is one more condition, that even if I am released on my personal bond for 45 days or further extended, the court, I have to report to the nearest police station within the jurisdiction of which I am saying, that every police station has certain areas demarcated. That is called jurisdiction of that particular police station. So if I am within the area allocated to that police station, I have to report to the police station at least every 30 days. So every month I have to go to the police station once in 30 days, not alternatively every week or daily, because usually these police station visits are always for daily or alternate days, something like that. Once in 30 days, I have to go there, and then I have to report to the police station. And then this personal bond, my release can be extended further. There is also the provision for the people above 60 years of age in that recommendation, because the people above 60 years of age are more susceptible, prone to getting infected. And therefore it says that those persons who cannot be released because of all the recommendations, then for them the state has to make arrangement to maintain social distancing within the prison. It is the duty of the state. It is the duty of the state to maintain sufficient social distancing facility for these people, and also all the medical assistance and medical help. So that the report of 11th May is very nice. It is on the net. You can go and find out. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Today you have enlightened with many facts, like who are entitled to get the legal assistance, like dual caste custody, the people who are in custody, women under desert circumstances. And also you have enlightened the Shankar Mahato versus State of Bihar case.
Yeah.
You have also shown the areas of Adivasi areas where the pains are there, like it's Punakha and Nandurbar. And so many students today we have with us, like Dr. Asha Tiwari, she is from Nandurbar. One Ankita Valavalkar, she is from Gadchiroli. Dr. Aizaz Sheikh from Chandrapur. So, sir, you have most of the points you have cleared: need of justice, why sensitization is necessary, why awareness is necessary in the society, then what is the legal literacy, paralegal training. So most of the topics today you have covered with us. So thank you so much, sir, for today we have with us, and you have given a very great knowledge. You have shared a very valuable knowledge to all the students, participants, and even the advocates. Now over to Evita madam for the vote of thanks. Evita madam.
Thank you, madam. Just before vote of thanks, let me express my.
Yeah, sure,
Thank you.
sure, sure.
Now, this is the topic which is at my heart always. Always. Legal aid, legal literacy, legal awareness. And definitely, I would like to visit again. I had never been to Gadchiroli. I had never been to Gadchiroli. But one day, definitely, I would like to visit Gadchiroli also. Chandrapur, yes, I know. Because there we have a law college, Shantaram Potduke Law College, Chandrapur. But regarding Nandurbar, when I started traveling further from Akkalkuwa up to Morgi, because I was to stay in Morgi and there up to move around on a motorcycle. So when we started, I was so, what can I say, that very impressed by that particular ghat section and whatnot. But when I reached Morgi and in the evening I started meeting the people or started looking at the people, then I was shocked. And next day onward for next 3-4 days, I can't forget those days. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, I used to meet as many people. I used to catch as many people as I want. And, the situation is really bad. There is one more area, Dhadgaon. Nandurbar district is clearly categorized in two parts. One is on the plains, that is Akkalkuwa, Shahada, and something like that. That's a very beautiful place. But other is in the hilly terrain. And if you go to hilly terrain, the situation is really worse. I went to one particular village there near Dhadgaon, where our motorcycle could go only up to the spot, and thereafter for almost 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes, that is 1.5 to 2 kilometers, we had to walk. Even the motorcycle could not reach there. I forgot the name of that village, or Pada, something like that. So I really don't know. If somebody becomes ill in that village, how can he be shifted? Because for reaching the road, you will have to walk for 35 to 40 minutes, where you can get a rickshaw, something like that. Forget ambulances. The situation is really very bad, very bad. I talked with some politicians also from that area, but everybody is saying that yes, we are doing it. There is a beautiful Nagrikanchi Sanat for the Adivasis and something like that. But the situation is really bad, very bad. I don't know from where your Tiwari madam is. From which part you are, Nandurbar? Okay, okay. So, but definitely Gadchiroli, I would like to visit. You can give me those names and maybe the contact numbers afterward.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Maybe in the Diwali or Christmas, I can enjoy in Gadchiroli. And if any of the kids want to come, you can come. But of course, it's a soldier system, and you will have to stay along with me. In a way, I stay. Okay. I will give you a perfect room with the roof, and for ladies, toilet facilities will be available. That's my promise to you. The rest of the thing I can promise to the boys. Okay, because I will be with you. Be sure about it. So we have to live in those circumstances. Then only we can feel that particular life, that lifestyle. Chalo, okay, nice. Thank you, Madhura. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that you are with us. Evita, madam?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Good afternoon to all. I, Ms. Evita Fernandez, on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's College of Law, propose a very sincere vote of thanks to our esteemed yet humble guest speaker for the day, Professor Narayan Rajadaksha, sir. It was a great honor to have you here, sir, with us. It was a very vital topic that we all needed to listen and work upon during this pandemic. Your keywords, such as judicial administration, mitigation counseling, including legal aid for children, and litigation, where access to justice is essential, and all your information that you shared with us have hopefully enhanced the mental forte of every participant present here. And but it would be great help in future while dealing with such pandemics. I would like to thank our management for giving us this platform to conduct this 3-day workshop. Sincere thanks to our Honorable Secretary, sir, Dr. Rajendra Singh, Director, Dr. Mrs. Usha Mukundan Madam. Special thanks to our convener, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kalamkar, Principal of HVPS College of Law. Because of her constant effort, support and guidance, here we are on the second day of our workshop with 372 participants on Zoom app and 12 viewers watching live on the YouTube app. Thanks to Devi Prasad Shetty sir, who looks after the entire technical and support team. From the participants, I would like to thank various academicians such as principals, teachers and students, and professionals, practicing advocates, and my dear colleagues for gathering here for this workshop and being supportive audience. Thank you so much. Over to you, Greta ma'am.
Thank you, Amita ma'am, for the wonderful vote of thanks. A gentle reminder to all participants to fill up the feedback form. The link has been posted in the chat box. It will be shared on the Telegram group in a moment. Please join our institution's Telegram group if you haven't joined it yet.
Tanvit, हो गया?
We'll be awarding certificates only to participants who are present for all 3 days.
हाँ sir.
Thank you, sir.
Chalo, thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Mukundan madam, after this COVID, definitely one day I will come there to see you and Dr. Rajendra.
Thank you so much, sir. It's like mentor like you that we always are able to progress, and we look forward. And as you said, free legal aid is really the need of the day. And many of these budding lawyers would always remember that there are many people who need their help. So money comes next. It is very important in life, but it's more important to be a good human being.
बच्चों एक बोलता हूँ खाली, बहुत पैसे कमाओ, बहुत नाम कमाओ, बहुत शोहरत कमाओ, बहुत बड़े बन जाओ, राम जेठमलानी बन जाओ, सब कुछ बन जाओ, लेकिन साल में एक लीगल एड की केस कोर्ट में फ्री ऑफ चार्ज चला।
How sweet.
बस एक ही साल में, एक ज्यादा नहीं, पूरे जिंदगी में 40-50 केसेस। अब कुछ ज्यादा चलाएंगे तो और खुश होगा। लेकिन साल में एक केस गरीबों के लिए करना, और बाकी जितना कमाना है उतना कमाओ, जितनी मजा करनी है उतनी कमाओ। गरीब की केस ज्यादा लगन से करना, बिकॉज he is really in need of some assistance from you people. Okay, all the best to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.